Hey guys, welcome to That Pedal Show. VCQ, Dan here.
Mick here. Hello. We were a week behind with VCQ because we went to Niam, and so we thought we'd catch up.
Yes.
This VCQ, which I think is going to go out on Wednesday, the 6th of February.
Okay.
Why not? That's
Perfect.
today.
You're putting it out today?
Why not?
You're awesome, man.
Why not?
That's great.
But it might be tomorrow, but it might be today, depending on how quickly I can edit it. My laptop's rubbish compared to yours.
My laptop is an absolute revelation.
How long would your laptop take to output a 30-minute 1080 video?
Minutes.
2.5 hours.
Dude.
And that's like a 4-year-old laptop with
really?
non-upgradable RAM. Apple, I'm looking at you. You charge all this money for stuff and it's not upgradable.
It's terrible.
Oh, it's doing my Sweden. Anyway, this is about...
My awesome laptop is a new Mac.
Yeah.
That's crazy good.
So we'll see how that is in 3 years.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so this is about transistor amps. So we do like transistor amps after all.
We do.
Which went out last Friday.
The interesting question is, yes, we do like them. Would we choose them?
I think that'll become clear in due course, Daniel, over the coming years and months. Will it?
Yeah,
all right,
absolutely.
So let's kick off with Jonathan Collingridge. Hello, Jonathan. He says, are we really expected to believe that Mick suddenly likes both Android and solid-state amps? What a sellout.
Paddy Blight, our bass player, says there's always one guy in the band ruining the iMessage group chat created by going Android.
Totally true. I miss out on loads of messages, which is great. However, lots of people, including Alan W., Brandon Witt, pointed out that the video from my new phone was totally rubbish. And it was. I asked Simon why it was totally rubbish. And he said, I don't care. You go Android. You don't deserve an answer. Splitter. So.
Okay, Matt Eli says, gents, regarding transformer isolation when running multiple amps, would any pedal that uses a transformer effectively isolate the ground? Specifically, let's say I've split my signal with a stereo delay, and in the path of just one of the amps, I insert an always-on pedal which uses a transformer, such as the JHS color box. Am I effectively using the color box as a ghetto humdinger minus the phase switching? No, you're not. So,
interesting question.
Yes, a very interesting question, and I really like that. People are asking great questions.
Better questions.
Love it.
No answers, only better questions.
Exactly. So, the transformer in those pedals is actually used as part of the audio circuit because there's a, the way that transformer's been designed in the circuit, it adds, the way the magnetic field collapses with certain things, it adds a certain thing to the tone. Yeah, but the earth is still connected, if that makes sense. You've got your side that has your signal, and then your earth. And then on the other side of the transformer, you still have the signal, but that earth is still connected on the other side. And that can be done simply by, if you've got your input and output and screw it on the same case, that earth travels all the way around. So the other thing with that to remember is that in pedals like that, if they did isolate the ground, that's not what you want, because if they're going to one amplifier, and you've got the isolated ground, then you have no path to earth. So it's really important in those sort of designs that it isn't isolated.
That's an excellent point. I read that question thinking, oh, that's quite cool. And then you having just said that, there's every reason why.
You wouldn't do that.
Okay, good question though, Matt.
Very good question, Matt.
David Dite, hi David. Youssef Shams, Tyler Johnson, Briar Gray, Tom Clissold and Mike Williams, among others, all pointed out the comedy of us saying that we were biased towards tube amps. It wasn't intentional, but it was quite funny. And have suggested that there ought to be a new T-shirt there, and I agree.
Okay.
So we'll get on to designing that.
Perfect. Tom Golden
Todd Golden.
Sorry, Todd Golden. When you show all those pedals while playing at the beginning of each episode, are all those pedals generally on? I usually can't get a sound I like with more than one or two pedals on at a time. No, Tom. So what happens is those pedals are in a switching system. So they are on, but then they're not in the audio signal path. The reason for that is that because there's a lot of pedals on show, even when the pedals are off, we don't want those pedals influencing the way that pedals around them sound. So we put them in a switching system so that we only turn on the loops to the pedals that we need. Each pedal's in a loop, its own loop, and when we want to hear that pedal, we'll turn the loop on so that, for example, if we have a sound with just one pedal, then our audio is only going through that one pedal and then straight to the amplifier. It's now to do that, the pedals have to be physically on, like you'll see all the LEDs are turned on, but there's no audio going through them unless we select them through the switcher.
Yep. And what you're saying about finding it difficult to get a good sound when there's more than a couple of pedals turned on, that's one of the reasons why we use the switcher, because it just cleans everything up nicely.
Yeah.
You can do it though, and it just depends which pedals you pair together. So, an overdrive or two, a delay and a reverb, maybe some modulation is going to sound great together, but if you put 4 overdrive pedals together, probably not so much. So have a play with some stuff and see how you get on. SBJKD says, I thought you were going to try Quilter. After 42 years of playing, I'm now playing in my bedroom again with a transistor amp like when I was 14. I'm using a Quilter 101 reverb. Well, you're going to enjoy the show on Friday, the day after tomorrow, if you watch this on Wednesday, as that very amp is included in our video.
Yes.
And we take quite a long look at it, actually.
We do.
With some epic sounds in that video, Dan.
There are some awesome sounds in that video.
Yeah.
Hey, Lewis, don't you think with the declining quality of valves / tubes, i.e. noise in the heater, solid state is the way to go nowadays? I can understand that for mass production. Back in the day when they were making valve amps, that was the up-to-date technology of the day. Now, if you're going to go out tomorrow and create 1 million amplifiers, then arguably valves is not the way to go. However, if you're going to create something that is, based on, a tip of the hat to classic design, and, you're not going to be cranking out thousands of these things a year, then there are still good valves available.
There are. Funnily enough, I was talking to Martin Kidd, Honk, about this very subject.
Oh, there you go.
And he was telling me that a lot of modern amps are designed around modern valves.
Yeah,
so
that's a very good point.
He told me one particular example of where a certain type of modern valve couldn't take the voltage that an old valve could take.
AC30 is a really good example.
There you go. So the amp is designed around the specs of the modern valves. It's not that they're all rubbish. They're just different. And believe me, there are plenty of NOS valves still available.
Yep.
They clearly need to be tested and matched, because NOS doesn't mean good, it means new old stock, so it means good and bad. So there's loads of valves still left, and if you're the kind of age that Dan and I are, I think we're still going to be rocking valve amps when we're in the home.
I think that's fairly
chasing the nurses of either gender.
Gold Clonchap Mansion.
Someone said, why are you always talking about girls, Mick? It's like, just trying to acknowledge half the population, that they are in this world as well. Paul Gambon. Hello, Paul. I thought the Fuzz Face would expose the transistor amp's weakness. I actually preferred that setup. We were both amazed at the sound of the Fuzz Face into the next tone. What else did we try? Bloog? Pretty sure we did. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, not the same, but certainly not rubbish.
No, it was, traditionally, you would hear there's spikiness and, but that's not to say that you couldn't get that sound. Like you put it into an old Silver Face Fender Twin.
Yeah.
It just all comes down to the design of the amplifier, and the reality is these amplifiers, these new solid-state amplifiers, are being designed with all this in mind. A lot of them are being designed as pedal platforms.
Yep,
so you
true
can't
story.
design a pedal platform without taking that into account.
Probably says a lot about the fuzz as well. We know that so the particular fuzz in question was an analog man. Poor Dan's not been very well. He's got some sort of post-Namthrax.
I'm okay. It's trying to take hold, but I'm not letting it.
Yeah.
I'm beating it down through sheer force of will.
I don't want it. I've been on 10 planes in the last 3 weeks for not all brilliant.
This one over this side.
Not all brilliant reasons, and I'm amazed I haven't got anything yet, which obviously means I'm going to get...
You're really chipper, actually. It's lovely.
Oh, good.
Yeah. It's not to say that you're normally not, but I'm did things.
Yeah, it was an analog man, Sun Face, and they're very well designed.
Oh,
it sounded blooming great.
We've done shows where we've tried to make that thing sound bad.
Yeah.
In setups that we know expose, and we just can't make it sound bad. Irajad says, interesting that you went for knob sweeping and the favourite 2 o'clock position for setting up the Hot Rod Deluxe, rather than using the Matt Schofield system of getting the amp in its most responsive state. Was this a situation in which that responsiveness would not have been in the best interest?
For anyone not following, our good friend Matt Schofield, Honk, always sets his amps up, and he will change each of the pots and set them at their point of most change. Mm-hmm. And he always says there's usually 2 points on that pot sweep, and you just choose the one where it changes the most. And as far as he is concerned, as far as gains and EQs are concerned, that's the amp that will set the amp at when it's at its most open and responsive, which is what Irajad is saying. However, in the video, I think I said to Dan, just set it at 2 o'clock. And I think the reason I said that was because we were taking quite a while to get there. And actually, I was struggling to hear at that point.
Right.
Because if you blast your ears for so long, it's very difficult to start hearing things critically. So
cloth ears.
In the interests of just moving on, I said put it at 2 o'clock. And actually, as it turned out, the Hot Rod Deluxe was set with quite a lot of mid, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was quite honky, nasally, which it is anyway. So, yeah, I think that's an answer.
Yeah.
Any further thoughts on that?
It's an answer.
Mrs. Peel, I love this question.
Okay.
How about setting up the next tone to sound great and then seeing if you can get the tubes amps to match it?
That's really cool.
That's a brilliant observation.
Yeah.
Because normally we go the other way, right? You set the valve amp up and you say, can the tranny amp sound like that? Whereas there's plenty of things that the transistor amp does really, really well. Can the valve amp do that? And I think that's a very valid observation.
Very, very good. I will just say, it's like when we turned on the AC-15, you said, okay, let's get a sound. We literally turned it on and turned it up, and that's the sound.
That's the sound.
You know, but yes, it's a brilliant question, brilliant observation.
It's a double-sided coin there, isn't it? Because someone else, I don't know if I've managed to get it in these questions, but somebody else said it seems like the EQ and a lot of the settings on the transistor amps were much more tweakable than those in the valve amp. Yes. Which is the other side of the... I mean, this is not true for every amp, of course, because it depends what kind of tone stack it has. Mm-hmm. A lot of traditional amps have a passive tone network system, so they don't make radical changes. More modern amps will have an active EQ stack, which is, I'm pretty sure, what's in the next tone. I don't know that, but I'm guessing that it is. Mm-hmm. Therefore, it's more powerful. So that's your flip side. So what that then opens you up to is the potential for a lot of rubbish sounds as well.
Yep.
Whereas in the traditional amp, turn it on, set it kind of everything at 2 o'clock. It's gonna sound good.
Yep.
Which is... That's how we like it. Mm-hmm. How I like it.
Ron Van Hee, just wondering, are tube amps like paintings and modelling amps like the photographs of those paintings, while unapologetic transistor amps like the JC40 and Blues Cubes are the art photographs in their own right? It's a really interesting analogy.
Paintings, photographs, and prints is what he's saying. Is that what he's saying?
Yeah, art photographs.
Yeah. So paintings, photographs, and really, really lovely photographs.
All I would say, it's, you know what, we get asked this all the time, and it's tricky because if you're modelling something, you are saying that, well, this is where eventually I want to get to. Therefore, you're saying that this is the best thing, and I want to try and get as close to the best as possible.
Yeah.
So there is wisdom in the man's analogy.
I like the gallery analogy.
I think the gallery analogy
Because you could,
is good.
you go and buy the Mona Lisa, and that's all you've got hung in your house, and that's the only painting you can look at. Or you could buy a book with them all in, which would be a modelling amp. Are we digging a deep hole here?
Yeah. Come on, bring it on.
There's more to come.
Okay.
Whoopty-doo says, one thing's for sure, is that transistor and digital amps are way easier to play than tube amps. Agree?
So, I
really don't agree.
I'm doing a vlog on this because I've got 2 practice setups at home, and the valve setup does feel, it's not more difficult to play, it's just more revealing, right?
Okay, that's a different thing.
That's a different thing.
Yeah.
But whether or not you would say that because of the way they design sponginess into the transistor, the solid state circuit,
It's probably more useful to say that the different types of amps, and we can't lump all valve amps and all transistor amps together, but if we're going to talk generalities for a second, amps have a different feel, and if you have developed playing a certain type of amp, your playing will have developed in line with getting you out through that. So when you play something else, no matter what it is, it's going to feel harder or more easy for you. So it's really person dependent, isn't it?
Yep. Right, Alex Ledford. What's that green box with the screen?
Lots of people ask this. Underneath my, so we use my pedal board for that video, and underneath the Analog Man ARDX20 digital analog delay, I can hear Mike yelling. Underneath the purple analog delay, brown, purple, anyway, underneath the Analog Man
Maroon.
delay, is a green box with a LCD screen on it. That is the Amazio controller, which uses control voltages to do things like modulation, tap tempo. It seems clunky having it outside the pedal, but everything's analog and beautiful, and it gives you some preset stuff. And it really does add a tremendous amount of functionality to the pedal. It really
does, and we've both, used other things, delays in the path, but we both keep coming back to that. It really
I keep trying to get it off my board because it takes up so much space, but nothing sounds like it. It does sound spectacular.
Magic.
So that's what that is. Analog Man's just come out with a new one. It looks slightly different now.
Yeah.
And I think it actually says Amazio on it, so that you...
Oh, cool. Okay.
So that you know.
Sending love to Analog Man as well.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Legend.
Guitar Geeko Rama says, I love the Amp One, but I can't seem to find any information about what's new about the Mercury Edition. If you go onto Thomas's website, go onto the Blue Guitar website, you might land on an alarming page that says Amp One no longer available, which is because there's a Mercury Edition.
Right.
And according to Thomas, the changes are all kind of internal. They're just sounds. It sounds better.
Okay.
There's no vast functionality change.
Right.
It just sounds better.
Yep.
Tweaked.
Jin Hong says, I feel bad for Thomas, always having to go around trying to get his amp to sound like others, just because it's a transistor amp. It's not a Kemper profiling amp, it's its own thing, and people should buy the amp for its sounds, not if they can get as close as they can get to their tube amps, which is...
You say this.
I do.
A lot.
I do. I think the idea of trying to match an amplifier, again, is saying, well, this is the ideal, how close can we get to it? And there's... I just don't feel there's any winners in that scenario. When you hear Thomas play, so we were in Germany, and Thomas was there and did a gig when he had his Blue Amp set up. It sounded flippin' awesome. And again, he has, because he's developed the amplifier, and with the sound that he uses, so specifically that old Marshall of his.
Yeah.
And it sounded amazing. So I agree 100%. It's a great sounding thing. I think the thing for Thomas is because it's such a departure from what we know as solid state amplifiers, because it's not a combo or anything. You look at it, it looks more like a pedal.
Yeah.
And so he's been trying to show people that it really is a contender for a good onstage loud amplifier. I mean, that thing is loud,
crazy loud. Yeah, I agree with you. Same as Dan does, but as we have learned firsthand, it's pretty much the only way he can get anyone to take notice.
Yeah.
And maybe at some point in the glorious future, that time will be past.
Yeah.
Because not everyone will assume that an amplifier looks the way that an amplifier looks like. On that subject, a few people said they thought it looked really awful.
Right.
And I doff my cap to product designers, because what a thankless job that is. Because no matter what you do, someone's going to moan about how it looks.
Yeah.
I think it looks really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like a piece of tech.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like an old school analog thing, but I think it's really nicely realised and nicely designed.
Look, all the work that he did for Hughes and Kettner for all those years, he's really good at that stuff. I mean, there's the attention to detail. Like, he's got little magnetic plates on the bottom of it, so you can screw these little magnets in your pedal board and just have it go dunk and stick to it. It's brilliant.
A word to anyone designing stuff like that. I've seen so many of those boxes that have little feet on, so you can't put them anywhere. You can kind of put it on your pedal board, but if you want to put it on the top of a cabinet, the cabinet's got a handle on it, lo and behold, the amp one's got a nice little recessed thing in there, so it'll sit over a handle on a cab. He's really thought about it.
He really has.
Yeah,
it's great. Okay.
Yes, onto volume. The next few things are about volume.
Okay. Andrew Hyde, how could you think that a 10 watt valve amp is louder than a 40 watt Roland? I never said 40 watt Roland, I said 40 watt solid state amp. Try the same test with the JC120, a classic transistor amp, and try not to have your ears bleed. And Sanford Rogers, do you feel that solid state wattage has improved? Can a 40-80 watt solid state amp compete volume wise in a band setting, as well as a 15 plus watt tube amp? And
Thomas Kelly
says
right at the end, Mick was going to say something about volume, but never came back to finish his thought. Now I'm wondering what that might have been. So there was 3 things there about volume. The first one was, how can we say that a 10 watt amp is louder than a 40 watt amp?
Right. This is about rating. Now,
someone else asked, could we explain rating? And I deliberately didn't put it in because I blooming can't.
Right. But the idea is that when you're setting up, when you're biasing a valve amp, let's take a 100 watt Marshall, for example, and they put a sine wave through on the oscilloscope, and you can see that lovely sine wave, right? Now, the idea when you're biasing the amplifier is that you bias the amplifier so that it produces the maximum amount of signal before clipping, right? And that generally is where they rate it. The maximum amount before clipping.
And you say generally, which is the really key point, because there is no standard.
Absolutely. So, and that's the issue, because I've seen I had an old Vox AC50. Man, that thing is rated at 50 watts. That thing cranked out, from memory, over 70 clean. I've seen amps, whether it be the function of the valves or whatever, not come anywhere near their rating. One of the things that the transistor amps always struggled with was getting enough output before clipping. And so you'd have, remember those old cheap stereos? They'd say 200 watts, PMPO.
They still do.
They still do. And PMPO means peak music power output, which means forget a little bit of clipping, absolutely cranked, and they'll test it, and the peak output of that thing, regardless of headroom, has been measured. So, but as Mick says, there's no standard to it. Now, I will say that, like, the JC120 is a really good example, because that is so loud and so clean. The next tone, that is rated at 80 watts.
And we had it absolutely cranked.
We had it dimed, and it was...
And the master on the Hot Rod Deluxe, even though, as many of you pointed out, the master was at 0, right? Because the master doesn't work in the clean channel. So the volume of the Hot Rod Deluxe was at about 2.
Yep.
Now, sure, in a Hot Rod Deluxe you get to about 3.5 and it does start overdriving. But at 4, a Hot Rod Deluxe is blisteringly crazy,
Yep.
gig stopping loud.
Yep.
And at 40 watts, way louder than the next tone at 80 watts.
Yep.
So,
but then you look at the JC40 that we had on. I mean, that thing was crazy loud.
Yeah, that was every bit as loud as a Hot Rod Deluxe and then some.
So there is no standard to that.
Don't know how to work it. Speaker efficiency makes a big difference.
Huge difference.
For sure. So and then of course what impedance you're running at makes a big difference.
There just seemed to be a period of time with transistor amplifiers where the manufacturers didn't have any qualms on just putting crazy power numbers on there.
I think, Thomas said in their tests of certain 100 watt Marshalls they were putting out 150, 160 peak.
Yep.
So yes, listen to it, use your ears, decide whether it's loud enough for you, and listen to other people when they say, "Blimey, that's loud."
Yep.
Rob Adams. This made me laugh. So, you're both saying it's a totally usable sound with a look on your face like there's a rotten egg in the room. WTF, lol.
That was me.
You're like, yeah, it sounds great. Sounds really great. Yeah, it sounds great.
It did sound great. I don't, if there's a look on the faces, it's we're seriously considering, these amplifiers, because there's, the JC40 recently, that blew me away.
Yeah.
The sound of that thing. And it might just be our faces of
could be I'm not really understanding what I'm hearing here.
Right.
Or it could be I really don't like this. You're more likely to be able to tell in the playing, actually.
Sure.
When the playing's rubbish and we're struggling, that's usually when we're finding the sound hard. Right?
That's great.
And when the playing flows.
Yeah, and we're connected.
Yeah.
Happy days. 3 Sarakman 3, 3 Sarakman 3.
Yep.
Is that, I got as close as I could?
Yep, that's good.
Question I've always wanted answered. Do you use the bright switch on the hot rod?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was on. Joshua Garcia. After listening to multiple output stages of the next tone, I really hope you guys dedicate a future episode to amps with multiple voicings, such as the Egnator Tweaker or Boogie Transatlantic, Mesa Boogie Transatlantic.
TA15?
Yep,
awesome.
And TA30, I believe. Yeah. I don't know if they're both still in production, but as a budget constrained musician, I can see a lot of value in buying something like the Transatlantic, where I can purchase just one amp and still get the tones of Vox, Marshall, Fender, and Mesa. What do you think? I answered this in the comments. I think you're only getting one part of it.
Sure.
You're only getting some part of the output stage character and none of the other stuff like the front end, the input section, the EQ section, the transformer, the speakers. So I think it can be great, but it's only ever an approximation.
Yep.
And that's true of the next tone as well.
It's a component. It's one component in the whole thing that makes, so a Fender Bassman and a Marshall Plexi, they sound totally different. They are basically the same design.
But what you'll never get a Bassman to do, to use Dan's example, is like squash and sound like a really tiny amp. So if all you've got is a Bassman and you want basement, if all you've got is a Bassman and you want that really small amp squashing sound, you can't get it unless you use an attenuator. Whereas something like the Transatlantic or even the Next Tone, if you put it on the 15 watt setting, the EL84 thing, and turn that output volume down to, then you can get it really squashing and breaking up a little bit more like a small amp. So it is more versatile.
Yeah.
But same with modelling. Don't think your EL84 model in one of those amps is going to sound exactly like a small EL84 amp. It won't. But more versatile, yeah, sure. What I find with those things is I usually set them in the highest headroom output setting and then never change them again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, I'm the same.
And you may be the opposite. You might set it in the position that you really love and it'll just stay there for the life of the product.
Right, onto more stormy waters. David Bader Vaju 75, Cody Carrig, Lewis Davey, Two World Review, David Fernandez, Sean Strickland, and Andrew Nuttall, among others, all see a natural link in here to digital modelling. When are we going to do Helix and Kemper?
Because we've gone, oh, we'll try that out. Everyone's gone, well, you've tried sushi. Now you should eat deep fried bat's heads, right?
It's chicken of the cave.
Because it's all Asian food.
Look, I don't want to say we'll never do it, but I'm going to say we'll never do it. Here's the thing.
I'm not buying one.
Yeah.
Let's get the practical reasons out of the way.
Yep.
Not buying one.
Yep.
I've had Kemper and I've had a Helix.
Yep.
With respect, I didn't like either of them. In fact, I didn't even take the Helix out of the box. So I'm not spending my money on them.
Yeah.
Or our money on them. So, however, I'm going to say this: if somebody wants to send us one for 6 months, we will use it with no promises it will ever appear on the show.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, here's the difficult thing. We've grown up with these valve amps, and there are sounds within a lot of these amps that we connect with, and we know what we really like. It's not that we haven't both played these things. I certainly have.
You deal with them professionally in people's rigs, for goodness sake.
Yeah, and they absolutely have their place. If you're a session guitar player and you're going in to do a guitar track or a bunch of guitar tracks in one day,
orchestra pit,
all that stuff,
theatre shows,
all that stuff, it's
touring and you can't afford to tour.
Exactly. They are brilliant. If you've got a band, you've got one van that you're going to sit in with your gear.
Or you're flying.
Yeah.
And it's going to cost you $2,000
there you go.
bucks to ship your 4x12s.
And in that context, heads. They are absolutely fantastic.
Silent stages.
Yep. Brilliant. However, the gigs that we do at the moment, we're not even miking the amps, right? We're doing these small stages and we have vocals and kick drum, and that's the only thing going through the PA, and we're mixing ourselves on stage and we're getting the amps to a point. In that context, I still have heard nothing better than, the amps that you connect with, and then that scenario, they happen to be valve amps.
I think even a step up from there, where you are miking everything, like so if we'll do a guitar show or a small theatre or something like that, where the band is allowed to play at decent volume and everything's mic'd still. Yeah. I still, and again, this is based on 30 years of doing it that way. Yeah. So just to turn it around and go, okay, well, let's do this. Let's go silent. Let's put in-ears in. I think that is a decision. Every single person I know who's done it has done it through necessity.
Yep.
And they kind of moan about it.
Yeah.
They love it for the first 2 months, and then like, do you know what? This is tough. And then we get back into the whole silent thing, which is a whole other debate.
But I think, again, same as you, I know so many players who've done that and recognise its value and have gone back because there's an element there that they were missing.
Yeah, for me it's about the strings vibrating and a guitar and a guitar speaker with nothing spoiling that, nothing changing that relationship.
Sure.
So yeah, no doubt we'll get 1,020,000 billion comments on that. And for anyone who goes, guys, you should just try it, I'm going to come back to you and say, go out and buy 2 Rock Classic Reverb Signature, a Marshall Plexi, a Vox AC30, a Matchless DC30, a Fender Bassman, a Fender Super Reverb, and just play with them for a few months and see what you think. Right back at you. You're going to say, I can't possibly afford that. Of course you can't, which is why the practicality issue of modelling amps makes so much sense for so many people. Yeah. However, me and him have avoided things like moving house, having more children, relationship breakdowns, giving up jobs that were really important, financial ruin, to have owned and experienced all this stuff. It's totally insane, but it's what we remain committed to.
Very good.
Yeah.
We did get some requests to look at other solid state amps. Recordertron, Snip Snap Doggo, Juan Pablo Barotto, and Polarity Pictures and Tyler Clark all want to see more orange, especially the CR120, or the new Pedal Baby. And there were quite a few honourable mentions of the DV Mark stuff as well.
Yeah, so we will return in the future.
Yeah.
I think Orange will be emailing us going, please look at the new Pedal Baby.
Sure.
And I think that's the 1 unit rack thing, or they've just brought out a 1 unit rack thing, or something that looks flat and long anyway, whatever it is. Solid state, designed as a pedal amp. Looks pretty interesting. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we will return to that stuff for sure. Ian Freddy, what about using a transistor and a tube for a wet dry rig? What would you use for that? Well, you will very much enjoy this Friday's show, which is all about that, where we use combinations of the Next Tone and a Hot Rod Deluxe, the Blue Amp 1 and a Hot Rod Deluxe, and the Quilter 101 Reverb and a Hot Rod Deluxe.
Awesome.
And get some killer sounds.
Yeah. Guitarholic 27 Peterson, I just watched a video with German Robin Williams in it.
I was like, what? Oh, blimey. He does a bit.
He does.
Yeah.
He does. Peter Lemire, what are your thoughts on build your own amp kits such as the Mojo Tone Toy Deluxe? I built a Carvin kit guitar when I was in high school and learned so much about how guitars work. And I'm suspecting that these things will hold for amps too.
I've put this in deliberately because Dan and Simon, or at least Dan, Simon and I, are going to see Rift Amps, Chris Fontana, and we're going to build a 5E3 Circuit Deluxe.
Cool.
In fact, we're going to build 2, and we're going to film it. Now, I'm not going to build amps at home because I don't want to kill myself. I stopped messing around with amps when I got thrown across the room once off a Fender Twin. When I was messing about in there when I shouldn't have been doing so. So I don't mess about with that stuff anymore. However, we're going to go and build an amp with Chris from Rift, a 5E3 Deluxe, Tweed Deluxe circuit. And so we'll address that question in video form.
Very good. Right.
How's the old... you're not struggling.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm getting through it.
Getting through it. Okay, we had a few questions on Dan's guitars. Inaki Front, is it me, or has Red chipped a lot since I started watching the show? It looks gorgeous.
I don't think so. The thing with the chips, especially on the Candy Apple Red thing, once you get a chip, it's quite easy for that air and stuff to get in there and things start flaking off.
Yeah.
So that might have happened. Majority of those chips happened when I was doing crazy amounts of gigs.
So it might have picked up a few. But
might have picked up a few extra.
What's probably more likely is that our video definition has got significantly better.
There you go.
Since the early days of the show, the lighting's got a lot better. This show notwithstanding, so you can probably just see it a bit better. Is perhaps what's happening there. Jules Music says, "What's happened to Dan's 52 Blackguard Telly? Did he sell it? I haven't seen it for a long time."
I have that guitar at home and I play it every single day. I adore it.
So it's become a home guitar.
We are going to use it on the gigs. I've got an idea for the gigs, right? As far as the guitars I want to use, but the original gig we did, I managed to do everything with just the Telly and the Huber.
Yeah.
Which is great, but I do want to start having specific guitars for specific songs. There are certain songs that the Blackguard is just magic for. But yeah, I'll never sell that guitar. It's just
It
ace.
is an epic guitar.
Electric Flapjack. Nice. Can you guys do an explanation of ring modulation that's uses? Been playing with it in bias effects, but don't understand what it's doing. Okay, ring modulation is basically really fast tremolo. You've got...
Never knew that.
Yeah, so think of a fan, right? And then just speak your voice into the fan. It becomes like a Dalek, right? And so you've got this...
is it just one phase, or is it multiple phases of that?
With the fan analogy, your voice, it hits the blade, nothing comes through. It opens up, something comes through, hits the blade, nothing comes through. So it's taking that AC, your lovely sine wave, and chopping it up. The faster the faster the blade goes, right? The faster the frequency, and then and that's what changes the frequency in the ring modulator.
Right. Which explains why if you play two notes together, it just sounds crazy and like a robot.
Yeah.
But it's not like three fans stacked behind one another.
No.
So it's just Let's totally do. I love ring modulators.
Okay, we'll
I
do a
love
show
the way
on it. We'll do a show on
Guthrie
it.
uses them. I love the way John Schofield uses them. Honk honk. Let's do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tony Phelan's. I think it's Phelan's. Why is it you almost never play with a clean sound? Why is it, Dan? These overdrive and fuzz sounds are boring. For me, anyway. I think I replied to this in the list, Tony. 98% of rock and roll is overdrive.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Clean sounds are lovely, but they're never perfectly clean. Should we use more clean sounds? Maybe?
No, we shouldn't. ZS, you guys should look into when Mark Lettierias in the UK could make for yet another great episode. Have already been talking to Mark about it.
We hung out with Mark at NAMM, and what a fantastic dude.
An absolutely delightful human, a behemoth guitar player.
Crazy guitar player.
There's an album that's due out soon called Deep. It's basically him on a baritone guitar.
Yeah, if you haven't heard of Mark Lettieri, check him out. Plays with a band called Snarky Puppy, among other things, but just amazing player. He is coming on the show.
He is.
Rusty Undercarriage. I'm going to assume you're American.
Okay.
I hear beginner guitar tones. I would not use any of this gear. Maybe the Matchless. Blue sounded horrible to my ears.
Oh, no.
Love you, Rusty. Love you, Rusty.
Bless you. William Smithers. I just watched the opening jams. Killer! But Mick, you need to keep your hair products put away. Dan seems to be covertly pilfering.
You were looking a bit fuzzy. As you are today, mate.
I was due to go to the barber and didn't make it for one reason or another. So, look, you got to do what you got to do, you know? Thanks, guys. Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you later.
Cheerio.
Bye.